Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Strategic Influence and Communication, presented by the Office of Alumni Engagement and Philanthropy. My name is Sean, and I'll be moderating today's session. Here are a few reminders and notes about our next hour together. Please note that if you have any question during the session, you are able to type it in using the question feature on your screen. And we do encourage that you ask questions throughout the presentation because it does help facilitate our conversation. If you need any assistance during the presentation, please use the raise your hand function and I'll reach out to you in the private chat so that you can figure out your technical difficulty. I am now happy to introduce our presenter for today, Professor Lee Miller. He is an executive coach and a corporate trainer on influencing, negotiating, and sales. He is also an adjunct professor at Seton Hall University's Stillman School of Business, also at Columbia University, USC, and where he teaches graduate level courses in influencing, negotiating, and decision making. Currently, he's focused on how to apply these skills virtually and in the face of a major economic crisis. Previously, Lee was the Chief Human Resources at TV Guide, USA Networks, and Barney's New York, as well as Corporate Vice President of Labor and Employee Relations at Macy's. In addition, he's the former career columnist, for the New Jersey Star-Ledger. This fall, Professor Miller will be offering strategic influencing and communication workshops in conjunction with the SHU Division of Continuing Education and Professional Studies. These will take place on Fridays, October 8th, October 23rd, and December 3rd from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the school's South Orange campus. The first session is designed specifically for women seeking to advance their careers post-pandemic. A description and registration for these workshops is available on the Seton Hall Continuing Education website. And just to clarify, we will be sending you the link to that website after this webinar. You will also receive one of Mr. Miller's best-selling books as free when you register for one of these seminars. Among the books he has written are A Woman's Guide to Successful Negotiating, which he co-authored with his daughter Jessica, and which was selected by the Huffington Post as one of the 16 books aspiring women leaders need to be reading, and a featured book on the Early Show and Good Morning America. He also authored Up, Influence Power, and the You Perspective Power, The Art of Getting What You Want. As a frequent speaker, he appeared on CBS's The Early Show, ABC's Good Morning America, NBC's Today New York, Fox and Friends, CNBC's Power Lunch, MSNBC's Economy Watch, and National Public Radio's Morning Edition. I could go on at all the great things that Professor Miller has done, but I will now hand over the presentation to him.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be here and share some of my tips on influencing that hopefully you'll be able to put into practice immediately. I mean, that is my goal. My goal when I teach, it's my goal when I do webinars, to give you practical skills that you can use immediately. And one thing about influencing is everybody thinks they know how to do it, but in fact, most people, when push comes to shove, the strategies they choose to use tend to be the wrong ones. So today I'm going to focus on one or two key concepts that I think will help you become better at influencing. So I want to start with a quote from Dwight Eisenhower, General Dwight Eisenhower, President Dwight Eisenhower, on leadership. And he described leadership as the art of getting someone to do something you want because he wants to do it. I would use that as a good definition of influencing as well. So as I said, most of us, when we influence, we do what comes natural, what we always do, what we think is what convinced us, why we think this is a great idea. We think if we just explain that to everybody, they'll come around to our way of thinking. The reality is that doesn't work. It works sometimes. And as I like to say, even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. It works when by chance what you care about is what the person you're trying to get to do something cares about. So my goal today is one, to get you to think differently about influencing. Because if you keep doing what you always do, you'll keep getting what you always get. And influencing actually, as far as I can say, is the key skill set in business, in life, for your success. Leadership is all about influencing. Negotiating is all about influencing. Teamwork is all about influencing. Sales is all about influencing. And your career, promotions, getting hired for a job, it's all about influencing. And I'll try to share some insights on how you use influencing in the context I think many of you will care about. How do you get a new job? How do you get a promotion? But I want to start, I love generals because generals understand influencing, generals understand leadership. So I'm going to start with a story. A story about what we can learn from an unknown lieutenant at the siege of Toulon. Most of you, like most Americans, have no idea where Toulon is. None of us ever studied geography, and few of us study history. Toulon's in France. Great battle was fought there. And what we have at the beginning, the night before the battle, you have this brand new lieutenant. This is his first battle. He's got 2 platoons that are assigned to him. Colonel comes up to him before the battle, says to him, "Lieutenant," yes, he says, "you see those that hill up there?" He says, "Yes." Take those 2 cannons, put them up on top of the hill, and tomorrow, when the troops come marching in on the battlefield, we'll have the high grounds. We'll be able to demolish the troops as they come in. So he goes, "Yes, sir." And the colonel leaves. He has his men bring the cannons up to the high ground, and then he thinks to himself, because he's going to have to assign a group of those men to man those guns during the battle. And he thinks to himself, it's a high ground. It's a very prominent point. It'll give us a great advantage, and it'll take the enemy about 5 minutes to figure that out. And then they'll start training all their fire up on those cannons. And anyone I assign to be up there is very unlikely to survive this battle. And he thought to himself, well, I can order my men to go up there, and they might do that, and they might stay up there. And on the other hand, they might decide, what I just realized very quickly is they're not going to survive this battle. And when I order them to go up there, they may not go up. And even more importantly, the minute the battle starts, they may get going. So, and as a young lieutenant with a desire to show success in this battle, having my troops desert in my first battle, probably not a good career move. So he thought to himself, what can I do? How can I get these men to fight this battle? So he called over one of his privates and he had him paint a sign. And the sign said, "The battery of men without fear." And then he called all his men in the platoon together and he said, "I need a few good men to volunteer to go up and man those cannons." And every single person raised their hand and volunteered. Why? Because he understood what motivated those men. Bravery, patriotism, and frankly, the fear that everybody else would look at them as cowards if they didn't raise their hand. So social pressure as well. But all of those things guaranteed that the men would go and that they would fight. Who do you think this young lieutenant was? Well, since few of you probably know where Toulon is, few of you recognize the battle, and more likely, few of you know any French generals, except one. you'll guess the right person, and that would be Napoleon, and that's who it was. This was his first battle, and he told this story. So, I assume it was true because he told it. But if it wasn't, it's because he learned this is what he should have done, and he learned the hard way. Because this is how you influence people. You influence people by motivating them. So, with that said, let's talk about what is influencing and how is it different from negotiating. Well, influencing, as I said, I'll bring you back to Eisenhower. It's the art of getting people to do what you want. Good influencing is what Eisenhower said. It's getting them to want to do what you want. And we're going to talk today about a concept that I wrote about in my book, Up, Influence, Power, and the You Perspective, that I use when I teach. I call it the You Perspective. If there's one thing, and I'll spend a lot more time about this in my actual upcoming seminars, workshops, but it's a simple concept, a little hard to actualize, but to understand, it's fairly simple. It comes from the point that two people can see the exact same situation, see it differently, and neither party is going to be wrong. The problem is, if you don't understand how the other side sees a situation, you're not going to be able to influence them. We think about this all the time. We think about trying to get people to see things the way we see things. That's how we think influencing is. We have a good idea. We're trying to convince people. We explain why it's a good idea. We explain why we think it's important. And then we assume that they will share that view. Well, the truth of the matter is different people think different things are important. Let's take the work situation, okay? Let's take the interview situation. You're looking for a job. You go through the initial rounds of interview, the phone interview, perhaps, where you're talking to some junior HR person. They determine from your resume, from what you say, yeah, he basically has the qualifications to do this job. Then they go through and pick the best 3-4 people that they think are best based on the resume, based on this brief conversation. And then they have you interview with the hiring manager, the person who will actually make this decision. Now, what do most people do when they get prepared for this interview? They think, okay, what am I really good at? What is this job? What can I do that's really great at this for this job? What have I done that will be valuable to this job? We're looking at this from what I call the me perspective. What do I think is important? Most important about what I do, that most important about my skill set, that this would be relevant to this job, okay? Well, the problem with that is your interviewer may share some of those things, in which case it's like the broken clock, you're lucky, or he may or she may think those are important things, and yes, you have to do them for the job, but it's not what's most important to me. It's not what I care most about, and frankly, what do most people who are hiring for a job care most about? They care most about whatever is their biggest crisis at the moment. That's what they're focused on, and whoever can help them most with that crisis or problem, that's who they're going to hire. So most people, as I said, will emphasize what's important from their viewpoint, what they think they do best. And is that going to get you the job? Probably not, and if it does, it's only out of pure luck, because what you think is most important is what the hiring manager thinks is most important. And that, frankly, isn't usually the case. And more problematic is the fact that when you are interviewing with that hiring manager, remember, there's 3 or 4 or a couple, at least a couple other people who are also going to be hired for, or interviewing with that hiring manager. And guess what? All those people are as qualified as you are, because we didn't randomly pick out 3 or 4 people from the 500 applications we got. We picked out the 3 or 4 best people, And at a minimum, the one thing, and I was the head of HR, and I've hired thousands of people, and I've supervised the hirings of tens of thousands of people, is I could say with pretty great confidence that anyone who gets to that point in that round of it gets screened through that first round or two of and gets to the hiring manager, they can do the job. I can probably pick them at random, and I'll do just as well at determining who's going to do a good job. So the key is not can this person do the job, because pretty certain that you can do the job if you've gotten to that point, and so will the other 2 or 3 candidates who are going to be interviewed. The key is going to be, who does this hiring manager think is best? And there is no objective best. This is the problem. This is why the you perspective is so important. There is no objective best. Best is among all these people who can do the job. What aspect of the job do I think today is most important to me? And I'll give you an example. People, let's take someone who's hiring somebody to help him prepare his speeches. That's good. So first thing they're going to look for is someone who knows whatever the subject matter is that he's talking about. So you're going to want somebody who has content familiarity. Hopefully you'll want someone who knows a lot about it. Guess what? I'll get 3 or 4 people who know a lot about the content. That's who's going to be applying for these jobs. So I'll get 3 or 4 people who know a lot about this content. Then we'll look for, well, who can write a good speech? Well, guess what? I'll have in the preliminary, we'll have gotten speeches that this person has written before. So pretty much everybody's going to be able to write a good speech. So now each person is going to pitch why they think they're best. And I'm sitting back here thinking, and this would be a typical hiring manager. All these people can write good speeches. None of them is demonstrably better based on what I'm seeing here. They're all really good, but nobody's, heads and shoulders better than the others. They all know a lot about the content. Nobody's head and shoulders above the others. And besides which, I know more about the content than any of them. So that's not most important to me. They can all do research. I gather that from the speeches I've read. So that's what they're all going to pitch. They're all going to pitch some aspect of that. And in the back of my mind, and if you don't ask, you'll never know, I'm thinking what I really need is someone who could take all that content and speech and do a great PowerPoint for me. Because I'm going to be doing a lot of online things. PowerPoints are really important. And so I want to know which one of them can do that best. So if you don't know that, if you do know that, you will have prepared something in advance. Perhaps you'll bring a PowerPoint along with you. If you're able to anticipate that, perhaps that might be something I asked, you'll have brought along a great PowerPoint, or you'll actually spend extra time putting it together, or you might even hire somebody to help you for the interview. If you do that, and the other two, maybe they'll be caught by surprise and they'll have to pull out their computer, fumble around, come up with a PowerPoint. It won't be as good as yours. Who do you think is going to get the job? You are, because you understood the you perspective. In other words, what did this person care about and how did they see this situation? So same is true with promotions, although you'll know more about it, but it's all equally true. 3 or 4 people are usually being considered for promotion. They all could get the job. No one's going to waste their time considering somebody for promotion who couldn't do a good job. It's understanding, what does that hiring manager care about? And I have a question that, again, how do you find out what someone cares about and what their you perspective is? You ask questions. You ask questions of them. You ask questions of their secretary who's setting up the interview. You ask questions of the HR person. You get that information by listening and asking questions. The question I would ask to find out what someone's you perspective is, I would ask the question, what is it about your job that is keeping you up at night these days? Once I know that, I will know what aspect of my skill set to focus on in the interview in order to get that job. So that's the power of the you perspective. The U perspective recognizes emotions because people are emotional. So you want to play on those emotions. What they care about, you want to focus on it. It accepts the fact that everyone is different. So no two people have exactly the same U perspective. They see situations differently and they care about different things. Those are what you have to understand in order to influence them and to convince them. And the biggest mistake people make when they're influencing is that they fail to distinguish between the fact that organizations have interests and individuals have U perspectives. And what do I mean by that? What do you mean interests? Well, what is every company? What's their interest of every company? What do they care about? Well, you all know the answer. They care about making money. So they all have the same interests. But people within the company, when you need to convince them, they have different U perspectives. They see the situation differently. Let's take the situation of, let's say, the head of sales and the CFO. The CFO sees everything. How do we make more money? Always, the answer is always the same, as it's true for most finance people, most operating people. The answer is cut costs, right? So you want to make more money, let's figure out how to cut costs. Head of sales doesn't see the world that way. The head of sales sees the world by, cut more costs. Oh my God, that's terrible. We won't make more money. I won't make more sales. The way to make more sales is sell more. So I need to spend more money to sell more. So two different perspectives. In order to convince the CFO, you need to show that one way you can show, well, what you're going to do is going to save them money. That's a sure winner. But at the very least, if you're trying to convince them to spend more money, you've got to convince them that you're doing it very efficiently and it will more than pay for itself. And that's a layup, but and even better, that you can cut costs elsewhere. That's the best way to convince them, is give me my money for this project and I'll figure out ways to cut costs in some other area because this is more important. Now you've got the CFO going, great, let's do this. So again, two different people with the same goal, getting more money for the corporation, who see the world totally different and who you need to influence in totally different ways. All right. Power of desire. Let me kind of talk about that. And these are many different U perspectives that you can look at: money, loyalty, family. We care about all these things. You can appeal to all these things when you're trying to convince them of something. So you need to be flexible about what you focus on when you're trying to influence somebody, because money always will influence people. So if you say, I'll give you $1,000 if you do this, they'll probably do it. On the other hand, you probably don't want to give them $1,000 to go to the movie you want to see this week. So you have to convince them in some other way. For instance, you might show them the review, show them that, wow, this has got great reviews, or say, this is a great place to take a date. So your date will love it. So let's double date and we'll go to this movie. There's lots of different ways to appeal and part of the U perspective is thinking yourself, what are the different ways? What are the different things I can appeal to get somebody to do what I want them to do? I'll give you an example of something that really, really illustrates this point. And the point really is, if you're selling, people buy what they want, not what they need. People do what they want, not what they should. So when we eat too much, but the thing is, we convince ourselves that what we want to do is what we should do. What we want to buy is what we need. And salespeople know that. They give you reasons why you should do something, so you can justify after they've already convinced you that you want to do something. This is a perfect example. This is, a lot of the photos I use in PowerPoints are stock photos. I get them from other people. This is a photo I took on my iPhone. This is me I'm coming out of the gym. I go to the gym 2 or 3 days a week. I go early, so I'm usually coming out at 6:30, 7 o'clock. So here I am coming out of the gym, right in front of me, this beautiful car. Beautiful car. Looking at it, oh my God, this is a beautiful car. And I'm thinking, well, this guy's in the gym, or it's a woman, I don't know. Somebody's in the gym, but I've got this beautiful car. And then I walk by it and kind of stop and I think to myself, wow, because this is what I see up close. There's a baby seat in this car. Now, the person's in the gym. It's a red convertible, so my guess is it's a man, but women like red convertibles too. Men love red convertibles, but it doesn't really matter. Whoever's got this car is in the gym early in the morning. They still got the baby seat in, so they must have this baby pretty regularly. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the car in all the time, and they wouldn't keep it in when they don't have the baby. So I'm thinking to myself, they have the baby all the time. They don't have the second car because they'd have the car seat in that car probably. So why is somebody, because this can't be a good thing. It's not safe, it's not comfortable. And frankly, driving around in a convertible with your top down and a baby in a car, most convertibles aren't that safe. So this isn't really a good idea. And yet this person bought this car and is driving around the baby with it. Why? Because they want a red convertible. And I can tell you, salespeople, if they sense you want a red convertible, they're going to sell you a red convertible, and it's an easy sale. And as a matter of fact, you'll pay more for that red convertible, even if it's not the right car for you. And nothing that salesperson is going to do, knowing that's your you perspective, is going to convince you should buy a different car. They're not. And you're going to justify, oh, no, this is perfectly safe. It's got all these airbags and radar and this and that and the other thing. So it's perfectly safe. They will convince themselves this is a great car for a baby because they want to buy the car. And as I said, if you're a salesperson, you try to convince them, maybe you should buy this SUV over here. It's much better, much safer for the baby, much better for the baby. You're not going to get the sale. Now, if you're a great salesperson, you can afford this car, you probably can afford a second car. You sell them two cars. You sell them the red convertible and the SUV because you understand the person's you perspective. But again, that's the power of the you perspective. It's the power of desire. If you want something, you will justify why you want it. So, again, JP Morgan used to say, people generally have two reasons for everything they do, a good reason and the real reason. If you want to influence, you have to figure out what the real reason is. All right, with that said, the basic tip I'm going to give you today is anytime you want to influence anybody about anything, there really are only two questions you need to ask. Ask yourself them, and you have to figure it out a little more indirectly. I'll teach you how to do that if you come to my seminars. But the real questions you need to know is why and why not. Very simple. Why would this person want to do what I'm proposing? And what is going to keep them from doing what I'm proposing? If I understand that, I'm going to be able to basically convince you that this is why you want to do it. Again, I'll take whatever why it is that you have, and I'll connect my proposal to show you why this helps you satisfy that need. It does something that you care about, and why not? What's keeping you from it? And I will, in my presentation, show you why you don't have to worry about that. I actually, another influencing tip is if I preempt it before you ask, well, what about this? It's much more powerful, and you generally won't even bother to ask. Oh, well, okay, that's fine. I don't have to worry about that. All right. So finally, let's go to how do we normally approach it. Again, this is why when I started off this session, I said in my basically cover slide, what everybody thinks they know about influencing and why that strategy will fail you when you need it most. It's because everybody approaches influencing pretty much the same way. I'm gonna, since you can type in answers, right?
They can type in any questions.
All right, so just type in how you go about influencing. What do you use to generally, what have you learned? What did you learn in school? How do we influence people? How do we get them to do what we want? What did you learn in school? How do you basically if you went to business school, how do you make a business case?
So everyone, you can type in your answers. If you notice, there is both a chat or a question feature. You can use either one of those, and I'll read out your answers out loud. In the meantime, we did actually get a question.
Oh, go ahead.
If you would like to.
Sure.
So it's a little long, so I'm just going to get to what I believe the point was here.
Okay.
Where is that words have strong value, and this specific person is involved in a lot of overseas I believe freight. But they were wondering, what can they do when it comes to language barriers and to where words might mean something different in another country?
Okay. One is when I teach cultural awareness, is you really need to understand the culture and the language. I suggest if you can, if it's important enough, you have an interpreter, and not just someone who interprets the language, but someone who interprets the culture, because cultures approach things differently. People are influenced, they have different values. And having spent a lot of time working in the Far East and the Middle East, there are different ways of influencing back to what do they value. And they value things differently than Americans do. And they're just different cultural values. But what I would suggest is the best thing to do is ask questions, and when it appears that you're not getting through, stop, slow down, and start again. Because obviously there's some kind of miscommunication there. Try a different approach. But usually, and here's the key, back to why the you perspective is powerful, and it's powerful cross-culturally as well, although you need to understand the values of the culture in your approach, is once you connect with something that people care about, why they should do what you want, do something the way you're suggesting it, whether in your case maybe it's speed, that if you do it this way you'll get it within 2 days. Any other thing will take a week. Once they care about that, and you've got them to kind of think, well, this is a good idea, they'll help you. It's kind of the opposite. Once you say something that I don't care about, in other words, you should do this because it'll save you money. Well, if I'm Bill Gates, I don't care about that. I care about a lot of things, but saving a couple bucks isn't one of them. I'm no longer paying any attention anymore. You've lost me. So the key is, if you understand what the person cares about and you connect your basic proposal to what they care about, they're going to help you. They're going to help you, well, overcome the objections, because back to what I said is people do what they want, not what they need. They want you to sell them. They want you to convince them because you got them to basically want what you want. All right. So usually when we are unsuccessful in influencing, it's because let's go before we get to that. Let's go to what did you answer? What did they read? What was the answer?
Well, we only got one response, but
okay.
The person did say, make your idea their idea.
Well, he's learned already, because that's exactly right. But because if it's their idea, it's what they care about. But that's not what you were taught in school. That's not what we teach in business school. We teach you to make your case with logic. The other way you make it is authority, but we're not going there, because usually you don't have the authority. If you're the boss, that's usually enough to get people to do what you want. That's plenty of influence, but most of us are not the boss. Most of us are trying to influence our boss, influence our peers, influence others. So it's logic. This is a good idea. So let's start with it. This is a good idea. That's how we convince people. Well, guess what? Again, generally in life, just like in the interview situation, you're not competing your good idea with somebody's bad idea. Because again, those get thrown out very quickly. I'm sitting back here, well, I got 3 people pitching me 3 good ideas. They're all good ideas, but I can only do one. I've only got time for one. I've only got money for one. Which is the best idea? Now, you think you can show me why it's the best idea because you think it's the best idea, and you're going to do it. Show me why you think it's the best idea. Well, if it doesn't connect with what I think is important, you're going to lose. One of those other ideas, is more likely to connect with what, just by out of random, you got 3 ideas. You got 2 that are more likely to connect if you're randomly picking a reason why I should go with yours. If they're smart and if they've taken my courses, they'll already know what I care about, so they're even more likely to get their idea in ahead of yours. So that said, it's about actually starting your influencing process by listening. They teach you when you're selling. Listen, ask questions, get them to tell you what's important to them. Then your idea is your idea, your proposal is your proposal, but connect it, show why your proposal will help them with something they care about that's really important to them, and you've got them there. This goes to the logic is necessary, but not sufficient. Nobody picks bad ideas. On the flip side, again, yours isn't the only good idea going around. Yours isn't the only proposal going around. People are always choosing. They all have limited time. They all have limited resources. And you'll never understand, that was a good idea. He liked my idea. Why they didn't go, why they went with some other idea. It's not that yours wasn't a good idea. It wasn't that they didn't like it. It's just, it wasn't compelling for them at that moment in terms of what's important to them today. So you can be so much more effective as an influencer when you figure that out. And as I said, there are techniques to do it, but listening is a good starting point. Listen to what they're saying. People will tell you one way or another, indirectly or directly, what they care about. Okay. This are 2 quotes I think are powerful in understanding how you influence. Appeals to emotions are more effective than appeals to logic, not because people are stupid, but because the mind is designed to use logic to support our beliefs rather than changing them. In other words, we do what we want, not what we should. So we select, they call it confirmation bias in psychology. We look for facts that support what we already want to do. And as Scott Adams says, people are never rational, they rationalize. So after the fact, they tell you why they did something. All right. Okay. We're coming up to the point where I want to take questions. So I'll open the floor for questions.
Sure. So I hope everyone knows, as I mentioned, there is a question feature. So please type in any questions that you may have. And in the meantime, I would also just like to remind everybody that this is just a little taste of what is to come with Professor Miller's courses coming up with the continuing education department. And it's great. If you wouldn't mind letting them know a little more about it.
Absolutely. There are 3 sessions. You can take only one if you like. You would never take all 3 because the first 2, the one on October 8th, it's designed specifically for women, and the one I forget the other date. The second date is
October 23rd.
October 23rd. That's kind of gender neutral influencing and negotiating skills. 80% of all influencing and negotiating is gender neutral. So, most of that session is the same, whether it's for men and women or just for women. There is some differences. The principles are all the same, whether it's for women or for men and women. The principles of influencing are the same. How you apply them, and I'll go into this deeper in the session for women, how you apply them may be different. For instance, yelling. I don't think yelling is ever an effective influencing strategy. Screaming, yelling, being a bully, never an effective influencing strategy. It is death for women. It is bad for men. but I always say we tend to forgive men when they're jerks, or at least we forgive them more. So while I say it's not a good strategy, yelling rarely ever works for anybody, but when women do it, it almost never works. So same thing, but you want you show yelling usually shows I'm committed, I care. Again, that's why we may forgive it for men, because men are generally more cretins in that, in showing that how they care about things. But it's not a good strategy. But for women, we don't accept that generally, or at least it's not effective. But women actually are, when they are serious about things, rather than yell, they should get quiet. Because when they get quiet, we take them much more seriously. It's very effective for them. So while men may raise their voice below yelling, I don't suggest yelling, or screaming, but you might raise your voice to emphasize. That actually will work for men. It's the opposite works for women. When they lower their voice, even more powerful. So again, same principle. Show them that you care, show them that you're serious. Men do it in ways that are different. Tall men influence differently than short men, and since men tend to be taller than women, there are some differences that plays into, but tall women can use some of those same techniques. So in any event, most of the principles are different, but we'll talk about what the kinds of things that basically trip up women, and that's in the session on women. And so it's a very useful class because it has that dimension specially designed to deal with basically influencing for women, because frankly all classes are basically designed for influencing for men. So this gives you the 20% as a woman you might not otherwise get elsewhere. And it's based not on my own thinking, but on the book and research I did with my daughter for A Woman's Guide to Successful Negotiating. So it's based on that and on other people's research. All right, questions?
We got another great question.
Go ahead.
What are some of the methods / lines of questioning that you have found effective to discern the you perspective? You mentioned earlier asking what keeps them up at night. Are there some other similarly framed?
Yeah, I've got a kind of a list of questions that I use in the seminar. I can't pop them up off the top of my head, but one would be when they're talking. Well, why do you say that? Just to get them talking. They'll talk in the why. They'll tell you a lot of things that are important to them. They're not going to say, well, why? Because somebody, I read on the internet last night when I was trolling, Twitter. So they'll say, well, there's data that supports this, or they'll say, so-and-so who I really respect did it this way. So if they do that, you want to cite experts to connect, because they value that. They value experts. They value other people's experience. You might want to talk about your experience. I've done this many times and it's worked, because again, that person has just told you that that's what they look for. They look for experts, and they look for people who've done this successfully.
So like probing questions that can allow the person to, who doesn't like to talk about themselves, right?
Exactly.
So for you to sit back, you listen, you just ask that question and let them fire off.
What we call open-ended questions that get people to talk. You want them talking. The more they talk, the more they're going to tell you what their you perspective is.
Great. Well, it doesn't seem like there are any other questions coming in at this moment.
Okay. Well, with that said, let me kind of conclude. Oh yes, here. This is, I'll share this. This is my influencing model. This is what I will teach in great depth. These are the techniques. Once you understand the you perspective, how do you apply it for maximum impact? I have a model. I call it convince, collaborate, and create. Convince is subjective. How do I enhance your perception of value of what I'm proposing? So there are techniques for that. Collaborate is kind of win-win. How do I listen to you and change the proposal? Because convinced I don't change the proposal, I just show you why subjectively you should think this is great. But collaborate, I'll actually change the proposal. And create is about structure. How do I structure my interactions with you? Do I let you talk first? Do I talk first? Do I have a written proposal? Do I do a PowerPoint? All of those are create ways of influencing others. So this, I'll do this in detail in those seminars.
We did have a question
go ahead.
about those seminars.
Go ahead. Shoot.
Are these follow-up seminars also available online?
No, not unless the continuing ed department decides to give them online, which they might. I'm capable, I do online seminars. So if you're interested and you can't do this in person, contact the Department of Continuing Ed and tell them you'd like to see an online seminar. I can do this exact same seminar online. I do it elsewhere online. So, but as far as I know, at least as of now, these are live seminars. So unless the world changes between now and October 8th, there'll be live seminars. If, you know, look, we went to virtual overnight. So if we go to virtual, I can do this online. We will not cancel these seminars. If in fact, for some reason we can't do it live, I will do it online. But as of now, if you want an online seminar, reach out to the Department of Continuing Ed, and I'm sure they can, if it's enough of you who want to do it online, I'm happy to do one.
And just, I would like to mention the dates again. And this is going to be taking place on the Seton Hall South Orange campus. And it'll be on Fridays, October 8th, October 23rd, and December 3rd.
All right, and also understand, you will take either the first one, which is for women, or the second one, which is gender neutral. Those are what I call essentials of influencing. And the advanced course, you have to take one of the others first, because I'm going to assume you know what I taught in those classes, and we'll go to even more advanced concepts to make you more effective as an influencer.
All right, so we'll wrap things up now. And first of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. And secondly, I would like to thank you, Professor Miller, for such an excellent presentation today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I know I did. And he did mention about his future courses that are coming up. So if you guys have any questions, I will let you know that there will be a follow-up email coming out tomorrow with more details on those courses and contact information for the College of Continuing Education. So if you do want to ask about if there's any option online for you, if it's not possible to make it in person, I'll have the contact information for you there.
And also, feel free to go to Amazon and you can pick up either of my books, Up, Influence, Power, and the You Perspective, or A Woman's Guide to Successful Negotiating. Or if you sign up for the class, you will get a copy of one or the other of those. In the women's class, you get the Women's Guide. In the gender neutral class, you get the Up book. You get it free, and I'm happy if we're live to autograph them if you like.
And so also in the email, there will be a survey, so you can let us know how today's webinar went. And in that survey, you can also suggest any future topics you'd be interested in hearing about. So one last thing, I'd like to just thank you all again. Thank you, Professor Miller. I think today was a great topic, and I hope you all have an excellent day tomorrow and weekend.
Thank you all for coming.